Welcome to Cosmosis or Whatever. I'm Celia. I'm a psychic medium, tarot reader, spiritual mentor, bug whisperer. If you know, you know. I am Dr. Doolittle in these spiritual streets sometimes. Okay. In this episode, I will be sharing a past life reading that I did today. It deals with healing the feminine wound. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I do Akashic Records reading. Akashic Records is like the book of life, basically. Past, present, future. I focus mainly on the past life aspect, but intuitively I will go between past, present, and future based on the needs of the client I'm with. I can talk more about that later. A lot of souls that are here on Earth have had several past lives. You probably have a bunch and you don't even know it. So understanding what lives we've lived before gives us kind of an idea of what it is that we're dealing with karmically. What we have solved, what we could still be dealing with. I've been working with a lot of people lately on like soul purpose. So it's a really extremely healing process. And they're actually my favorite readings. I use my psychic seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing, the clairs, which I'll be having a class on in February, if you're listening to this before February 2022. But I use all of those senses to go into a person's record on their behalf, and then I relay whatever information feels important to the soul's mission or journey right now. If you had a reading, you'll already know that it could get really random sometimes, but it only seems random, right? It's not actually random because we know that nothing is a coincidence. So nothing is ever really random. The bits of info that I get, they always are going to mean something to my client. And it's really fun to see how that kind of like unfolds during the whole reading and how the client is relating to like the seemingly random information that I pulled up. So into the story of this particular reading. So I am going to call this person Crystal, I should have scratched out their name. I have like notes. I have the notes that I took during their reading, and there was like a channeled message from one of their guides that I'll read too. It's funny because I have their name like right here. I should have blocked it out. Anywho, so I don't accidentally say it, but we'll call this person Crystal. Okay, so Crystal, this is Crystal's third Akashic Records reading with me. So cool. I'm so grateful. And it's been so cool to watch this soul's like evolution. You know what I'm saying? Like for the people that I have read more than once, it is so cool to me to see how far you have grown in your journey. Like the things that the things that you know how to do. When we're on TikTok live and you guys are like giving people tips, like I almost want to cry. Like I love it. It's so cool for me. Like I feel like being a teacher and like having people grow the way that you guys are growing. It's me about to cry, okay? Having you guys grow the way that you're growing is really, really fulfilling for me as like a mentor, a teacher, even just like a friend, you know, to a lot of you guys. It just sets my soul on fire. Okay, anyway. Ciao. I'm over here crying. The episode didn't even really start yet. Gosh. Okay. Gosh. Here we go. So, it started off. Oh, I should make this note. I also forget a lot of things. If you're listening to this, especially in the early stages, you probably already know that. Because, anyway, I forget a lot of stuff. So when I'm channeling too, I'm super zoned in. I tend to forget things. So yes, this person has had 3 Akashic Records readings with me. However, I don't really remember them until I start getting into the other reads. So immediately what happened when I started channeling is I was hearing like mermaid songs. And I immediately saw the word Lemuria. Right? So for those of you who aren't familiar, Lemuria is kind of like Atlantis. It's like an underwater civilization that existed a long time ago, and some people think it still exists. So I have a deck completely dedicated to Lemuria, but I'm like cleaning right now, so it was somewhere else and I didn't use it, but I saw those words, that word very clearly. Um, and the mermaid was singing, and there was like a message of singing and using her voice, Crystal's voice, to heal. Like in her mermaid life, she was using her voice to kind of like heal herself and people around her. So we had talked about that. I also saw the mermaid doing like holding a shell, like a conch shell, and that was kind of a message about like her mermaid guides trying to communicate with her, which is so cool. Um, she had made some references, I guess, last reading before we had done some talking about her being from Atlantis in past lives. So a lot of what I'm noticing about a lot of the people who have lives in these places, like they're all connected. So Sirius B is a planet that was covered in water. Lemuria covered in water. Atlantis covered in water. So a lot of you guys have had readings, or sorry, you guys have had lives in multiple um, of those places, which is really cool. And I'm noticing that the more and more readings that I do for people. So we started getting into like how a lot of light workers and star seeds are like activating right now. And I know a lot of you guys can also resonate with that, where it feels like I've also been getting this in like my regular readings where people are just being encouraged to allow themselves to kind of like sit in this weird period of like, there's kind of just a lot going on, but it's also like slow at the same time. I think you guys know what I mean. Like, it's me channeling during this. Okay, so I'm seeing like, it's me reading all of you while you're listening to this. This is funny. So I'm seeing like somebody walking through like a busy like New York street, right? But like it's like everybody's around and it's like while everybody's walking around, they're running around, it's busy, but it's all sped up, but it's also slow at the same time. You know what I'm saying? It feels like a movie or whatever. Like everybody else is going fast, but like it feels like you're going slow. I know you guys can relate to that. So but basically, Spirit has been asking us to embrace that, embrace this little like lull, this little moment of like not needing to rush into things and really stepping into our divine feminine energy so that we are able to feel our way through society, feel our way through our goals and what we're supposed to be accomplishing, and not so much just doing things to do things, or like, you know, like hustle culture or whatever. Like, oh yeah, I got to get a move on because, but like, where are you going, friend? Where are you going so quickly? Nowhere, you know? So like, calm down, have a seat is basically what Spirit is saying. And I had given Crystal this whole thing about like Power Rangers being activated. And then right after that happened, I was like, it all of a sudden switched into a past life. I believe it was in America. I couldn't be certain, so it doesn't feel like it was that important. But she was a reporter. She was a woman in that life too. If you didn't know, you can be an opposite gender or sex in another lifetime, and that happens very often actually. But in this lifetime, Crystal was a reporter, and I just saw her being super, super aggressive. It was really funny. It was probably back in like around the 40s or 50s, I would say, when, you know, women didn't really have a whole bunch of rights and stuff like that, right? We weren't allowed to do things, especially like right. So Crystal was a really good writer, though. I saw that like really good writer, reporter, I believe is what it was. Yeah, I'm looking at my notes. Reporter. So, but I saw Crystal arguing with her like male colleagues, saying like, well, I don't know why I can't use my real name. You know, I don't know why I can't just be known as me. Why do I have to be under like a man's pen name? Or, you know, why can't you publish my article if my writing is good? And they're all like, you know, mad at her, like, oh, it's just not done. Like, women can't do this and whatever. And she's just like slamming her hands on the table, like trying to make a point. Like, she was really like aggressive and aggressively supportive of her dreams and her talents, which she should be, you know, like go off, Crystal, past life, Crystal. But it was really interesting too. One thing that happened, we found out that, so Crystal was a different race in this reading as well. And sometimes people get a little bit weird about, myself included, not gonna lie, get a little bit weird about like being a different race in the readings. So what had happened was Crystal was like an advocate for people of color at that time, and that also was not accepted. So it just feels like, it was feeling to me like this soul had signed up for that role of being somebody who was a minority or advocating for minorities in some times when that really wasn't accepted. It wasn't cool. I also saw that, so the next life that we went into was an FBI life, or like a private investigator kind of thing. It was really cool. She was like a private investigator, but I saw her being like dressed up as a man. It was really interesting. So there was a lot of play just between those two lives. It was really cool. There's a lot of play in between like male female dynamics, masculine feminine energy, like what's right, quote unquote, for a woman to do, like what she's allowed to do. Ugh, that sounds gross. What a woman is like allowed to do. And like it was basically Crystal challenging the norms of that in both lives. Also notably, Crystal was such a good writer, and her guides were really pointing out to her that writing has a huge purpose in her life. Like that is something that she is meant to be doing in this lifetime as well. She's supposed to be writing. So I had asked her, I'm like, have you been writing? And she's like, no, I haven't written since I was really young, but I was thinking the other day that I should probably start writing again. I'm like, yeah, that's your spirit guides popping in there, letting you know. So when you guys get those little like hunches, that little intuition type of thing coming out, that can be your spirit guides kind of letting you know, like, hey, you're supposed to be doing this thing. You're kind of falling more into alignment with your soul's path. Every soul, before we come to a lifetime, we kind of map out what life we want to have, what lessons we want to learn. A lot of times it's going to be different, like how we get there, because I do believe in free will. So it's almost like a video game is kind of how I see it, where there are certain checkpoints that you have to reach, but how long you take to get to those checkpoints is up to you. Do you want to be messing around collecting coins? You could do that before you meet like this big checkpoint, like before you meet Bowser. You know what I'm saying? Like you could go back through the thing and collect the coins if you want, but eventually you're going to have to face Bowser, right? You're going to have to save Peach. Like, so that's kind of how I see it. But it was really cool to hear that. And then this really beautiful message came through directly from Crystal's, I almost said their name, oh my gosh, from Crystal's past life self, right? And so I'm going to read that off. It was a really, really beautiful message. So it says, you're ready now. Stop worrying about what people have to say. You've never had to. You're powerful. You came into this life as a woman to show that there are no limits. You can break the curses. You have to let your heart lead you. And I thought that was so, so powerful. Like I wanted to cry when I was channeling it, because I could just feel the love and the strength that came from that message. And then shortly after, I heard very loudly, very clearly, gender nonconforming. And so I had brought that up to Crystal, and Crystal kind of, seemed a little bit uncomfortable, right? Like I'm a good read on body language. I don't just read energy, right? And I was like, okay, like, how are you feeling about that word? And Crystal had expressed that, she felt like she didn't really fit into either one. She tended to lean more to the feminine side. So if she had to be referred, to as something, it would be more feminine, but she didn't really like feel like there's a side. And, gender nonconforming, like it's a scale. And if we know anything about gender and like, the binary is just something that we kind of made up. It's a construct. So we kind of broke that down a little bit in the reading, and it was really, really beautiful. I feel like there was so much confirmation for her in understanding that this is literally part of the reason why she's here and why she's experiencing these things. She's trying to understand about, gender, understanding, like pushing the limits and seeing how she can grow from doing that and how she can push the other people around her to grow as well, which is really cool to think about, because a lot of us are star seeds, right? Starseed is somebody who not all of your incarnations have been here on Earth. So a starseed, a lot of the races of the different planets and stars, they don't actually have genders. They don't, it's a lot more, what's the word? Ambiguous? There's another word for it. There's a better word. But I'm just going to go ahead and say ambiguous. Like, they don't have a specific gender or even sex, a lot of them. So it's like, I tend to think that that's almost kind of like being like ascended in a way, where you realize that it's not on a binary. Like, you don't necessarily have to be there, but like just realizing that sex, gender is not a binary system. It's kind of like a sliding scale. So yeah, just a lot about divine feminine energy, and I just think that's really beautiful. A lot of us are healing this divine feminine energy within us and not feeling like we have to be one or the other. Like, we can play around with how we dress, and like, I actually have a really, really cool guest that I want to bring on at some point in the podcast when I have a little bit more listeners. Somebody who is non-binary, and I would love to bring them on and have them, just kind of pick their brain, because I'm not gonna lie, like, I don't even know much about it. Like, I would love to pick their brain and just see what they have to say. They are an educator, and they use, their platform to speak about these things a lot, and I would love to do that. So if you guys are looking forward to that episode, let me know. I hope that you guys have liked this little story. I have so many stories of the past life readings that I've done, and I want to start sharing more of them. Actually, my guides are like basically making me share more of them, so you'll definitely be hearing them. Let me know if you guys like this in like my TikTok comments or Instagram comments. I'll find a better way for us to do that, but I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for listening. I will see you guys in the next one.